Good day, folks. I am at Alpine Park. I just got off the bus at the, what used to be, or Newburgh Road, Newburgh, which is now, the stop there is the Rockford Career College, but that's not where it originally started, but there's a college there for the folks that may not know about that facility now. I guess folks would call it Colonial Village, maybe. There used to be some stores and restaurants there. Anyways, that's where I got off the bus. And so I walked through the park here, and I am just east of Alpine Road. So if I walk out of the park, I will be on South Alpine. But I wanted to share this moment with you because I know there's a lot of history here. I can hear the crows and I can hear the stream, but I can also hear kids riding their bikes, sledding on these hills. You know, mom and dad saying, "Come on, honey, lunch is ready." You know, picnics going on. When I was a kid, we used to have a stream like this in our backyard, not too far. And we used to play in this stream, and it was about this size. I mean, some of the pools were about as big as this one is right here. And we would dam them up, and, you know, in the hot summer, even a pool that was like 2.5 feet deep was like a big deal for us. I mean, like a pool like this, maybe about 15 feet wide and 15 feet, you know, long, would satisfy half a dozen of us kids. And now, as I'm exploring this, I do it as I did when I was a child. I look down through the water and I look for minnows and I look for little shiny objects. Maybe somebody dropped something in, or, you know, they lost something 5 weeks ago or 50 years ago and it's now, you know, resurfaced. So I look for shiny things. I look for the little claws of crawdads, crayfish, you know, creeping under the rocks. I look on the banks to see if there's a weasel or some other little critter that's, you know, living in the banks. I do everything I did as a kid because, one, I've always been curious, and two, I've always just appreciated the beauty of nature and its mysteries. And like, let's look at this mud patch right here. Let's see if there's any tracks. I do see some little tracks. Yeah, more than likely they could be. You can't see them. These little tracks. I don't think they're raccoon tracks. They're too small. They're probably squirrel tracks. Maybe a squirrel went down there to get a sip of water. I also see some other like bird tracks. I mean, that they could be raccoon tracks, but they're very small. So maybe a baby raccoon. But I don't think so. I think they're squirrel tracks. I look how nature evolves and how it changes. You know, erosion, the force of water, the force of air, the force of fire, you know, all sorts of elements that change nature. They're, you know, we're very similar as humans. We change according to our surroundings and by our stressors and the different things that affect us. Now, this is kind of new here. It looks like the water has gone up a little bit. Maybe, I know we did have a couple of rainstorms recently, but some of this looks like that might be from last season. You know, if this were a trout stream, which it's not, it may have been 50 or 100 years ago, but there would be some trout hanging out down there. Now it's more likely to see suckers or carp hanging in something like this, or minnows, bait fish minnows from, you know, folks that fish, and then they release their minnows, or, you know, somehow another they get into the tributaries, these little tributaries. But anyways, folks, this is Alpine Park. I know you got a lot of stories here. Please share your stories. Please share what this little creek and stream was 50 years, 60, 70, 85 years ago. You know, any longer than that, I don't think you're going to be alive anymore. But maybe maybe your grandkids, or maybe somebody has photographs and pictures and stuff like that. But I'm always curious what was going on, because this is a really beautiful area. Now, we should clean this up, and so I do occasionally organize cleanups in the neighborhood. This is not my neighborhood, but it doesn't matter because this is my planet. And you know, we often say, oh, well, they should do this, or the city should do this. Well, you know, we're able-bodied humans. We can do a lot. I mean, in fact, we're the ones that take care of so much. I'm curious if there were bridges and other structures on this stream, maybe even a mill at one time. Who knows, you know, because, you know, as the land is developed, roads are put in, farms are changed, and all that, streams are redirected, the flow changes, all sorts of things change. Weather, of course, changes, you know, and so our planet changes. It evolves, as we do. Anyways, folks, this is my walkabout in Alpine Park. I think it's called Alpine Park in Rockford, Illinois. Let's listen to the birds for a few moments. There's a cardinal. Oh, there he is, right up there. I love cardinals, folks. One of my favorite sounds.